I'm doing a 100-day challenge building a village in each biome. The meadows, black forest, and swamp are all complete, and now I'll be heading up into the frost-biting, wolf-mauling, drake-swarming mountain. Do I still plan on not wearing pants? Does this answer your question? So let's begin. I spent 100 days in Valheim building the village. On the morning of day 1, I was mentally ready to take on the mountain to build my next village, but not to take on the enemies. The first order of business is getting the necessary preparation done to make this challenge less painful as possible. So I spent a few days farming the rich stamina foods like carrots and turnips, did some animal rearing, putting Princess and her offspring to work. Even though Princess was my new prize piggy, I didn't get rid of Brenda because she was family. But Gregory, I'm not so sure. I'm still on the fence if I should cook him. I have been back and forth between villages putting together resources for food, and I had to hunt Larry the Leech at one point to get blood bags for frost resistant potions, which will help me fight off the frostbite. When I passed through the swamp village, I remembered I was to give the village a name. After much reflection on my previous adventures, I felt Jerrywood was fitting.
Get back, Jerry, get back!
In the meantime, while I waited for the crops to reach full maturity and the frost potion to be complete, I took care of my regular chores, like evicting Frank from life, setting Stumpy on fire, and cleaning the wooden stone factory. I also did a bit of foraging for berries. While getting some berries, there is a mountain that is between the swamp and the black forest. I thought to myself I could use this small mountain as a test run. So on day 4, I reaped turnips and the carrots and picked up the frost potion from the fermenters. I decided I was going to check this mountain out. But before I do, it was getting dark, so it was best to get some needed rest and start fresh tomorrow. Another beautiful day have arrived. Now it was day 5, so I got myself ready to scout the mountain. I know this mountain was small, so it wasn't my ideal location, but I still wanted to see what it holds for me. At first, it was quiet, a bit chilly, but felt welcoming. Then here comes Winnie the Wolf. My god, was he fast. Thank goodness I had an Atgear that have a long reach. So later on, I was still feeling Winnie's welcoming bite, but I pushed on to see if there was anything else. Nope, nothing. Absolute disappointment. Well, what did I expect? It was a tiny mountain anyways. But after circling back, I saw 2 more wolves. In that moment, I thought it would be good to have some bodyguards for my future adventures. That's if I could catch them and tame them. I wanted to try. So I dug a trench to set a trap to catch them using my body as bait. How did the plan go? Well, I caught one. For the other one, that didn't went as planned.
What?
I tried to see if I could push him in the hole with my shield.
Oh no!
Everything went downhill from there. I went into panic mode with one clear mission in mind. Run. Winnie, wait, please. Hold up, let me catch my breath. Winnie, wait, I was back in the land of the living, performing what we call the run of shame. It was getting dark, but I was adamant I was gonna get my body. The good news is, it was close to the border of the Black Forest, which means a higher chance of success retrieving my stuff. Fortunate for me, Winnie called it a night, so I was able to easily get to my gravestone and bolted out of there back to Dwarfhenge village. The next morning on day 6, I woke up determined that I would not let my efforts be wasted, so I was back in the mountain with blazing determination. Now I was in a much more difficult spot to get my stuff. It would be impossible to outrun Winnie, so during that moment, I didn't have a game plan. Until I saw pebbles. Yes, use pebbles as a diversion while I grab my body. Genius. And the plan worked perfectly. Winnie gets something to bite, I got my stuff back, everybody wins, except for Pebbles. So, I got my stuff back, but at this time, I had just dregs of confidence left. I was thinking I was gonna be stuck in this perpetual nightmare of being mauled by Winnie, but fate took a different turn. That's right, we got it. Now that I caught 2 wolves, I can now start the taming process. I head over to the tavern to grab some leftover deer meat so I can build a connection through their bellies. Taming these wolves will be a major help because I will get new food new bodyguards, and in the future, use their fur to make a new cape to keep my buns at room temperature. That's right, no more warming my backside by the fire. Oh, yes, the embrace of the fire. So on day 7, I built a temporary shelter to camp for a whole day to ensure that these wolves get used to my scent. While they're doing nothing, I started to think about the journey that lies ahead for me to find the ideal mountain to build the next village, and how hard it's going to be to settle down to start building. It was now day 8, which was one of my happiest days, welcoming 2 new members to my family, Wilfred and Wanda. I safely escorted my new prized wolves back to Dwarfhenge village. For the time being, I kept the wolves in a fenced-off area between the watchtower and the tavern and fed them so that they can start multiplying. For the next couple of days from day 9 to 11, I put together resources to set sail into the unknown to find a new land. On day 12, I set sail from Jerrywood village through calm waters and rough high seas. I saw silhouettes of unimpressive mountains, a set of stone that looked like fingers, and then I saw it. That was it. That was where I was going to build the next village. I docked at the nearest black forest and made sure to set up a portal to return to Dwarfhenge village. The next morning on day 13, I was concerned about the time getting away from me to complete this challenge. So without hesitation, I started to make the climb. I discovered my first frost cave on the side of the mountain that I thought was going to be perfect for a campsite. Just in case if stuff goes downhill, I can safely retreat into the cave. I decided to start building a small house, not realizing the echoing sounds of my hammer would lure danger towards me. And that was when I heard it, the official welcome. And that day, I named the mountain. I called it Mount Popsicle. After receiving my stuff, the next day on day 14, I built a Dang, this looks horrible. I headed back to the boats to grab my wishbone I got from defeating bone mass in my last 100 days. This was going to help me find silver, which was one of the materials I needed to make the cave. While I was in my boat, I heard a roar that surprised me. It was a sea serpent. Fortunate for me, I was on land, so it was out of harm's way, making it easy for me to kill my first serpent. I got 9 serpent scale, 7 serpent meat, and 1 serpent trophy. I then ported back up the mountain to focus on finding silver, which was very important now, because I was running out of frost resistance potion. So I am pretty much desperate. That's why I'm searching during a blizzard, which I must admit is not smart. But the beeps from the wishbone had shorter intervals in a particular spot, so I continued. I dug the ground a bit and found my first silver vein not far from the camp. I spent some time mining out the silver vein until the blizzard subsided, and just when I was about to mine my first piece of silver, I realized my copper pickaxe wasn't strong enough to break it, so I headed back to the village to make an iron pickaxe. I returned to the silver vein to collect the sweet silver ore. Later in the evening, I ran down the side of the mountain towards the boat to make 2 smelters to turn these silver ores into bars. I had enough wool pelts, I had some silver. All I needed was a wolf trophy. So it was time to hunt Winnie. Yes, no mercy. So from day 15 to 16, I went out hunting so I could get just 1 wolf trophy. While I was roaming about, I discovered a stone golem who didn't like anyone. Wolf? Nope. Drakes? Nada. He was very tough, a real tank. He definitely deserved a name, and so I called him Timmy. Timmy was dangerous, but I saw an opportunity. If I could lure some wolves towards him, he could make quick work of them, saving me the hassle to fight the wolves myself. But I said I would try that after I explored Mount Popsicle a bit more, so I could also find a good spot to build a village. I later discovered a ruined structure that had onion seeds, which was a sweet food upgrade. Found a decent land space for the village, but I wasn't feeling that spot, so I continued until I was back to where I saw Timmy, the spot where he lived. I never really took notice of the spot at first because it seemed small at the time, but looking at it again, I thought I could make something of it. The next day was playtime with Timmy.
Come on, Winnie, let's play.
Oh god, I felt that one.
Excuse me, Timmy, let me just call it the remains here.
I know I did Winnie dirty,
But it was all for a good cause.
I later noticed there were some wolf remains by a tree, and guess what? It was a trophy. Oh my god. Finally. I made an upgraded workbench so I could make a wolf cape. I then decided to sail back with some silver so I could upgrade my cooking station, unlocking new foods like wolf jerky, ice cream, and wolf skewer. I made sure I planted the onions seeds I found nearby the well in Dwarfhenge Village. Dwarfhenge Village was starting to become my central village. I had wolves being bred there, turnips and onion farms, and don't forget the Greater Farm where I collected building materials just by running around the village doing other chores. Two more days passed and I didn't do much. I gave the mountain a break to focus on farming, to multiply the crops, and to put together building materials from the Greater Farm and what I had left over from building Jerrywood Village. I also got one of those blobby bobby raids. The first raid since I started. Wasn't a biggie really. Day 20, I was back in the frame of mind to get the building going. I wasn't deterred by the blizzard that was raging, so I pushed ahead. My plan of action was first dropping these campfires around to limit the amount of mobs spawning, along with some workbenches, so I don't get attacked while building. But I also needed to move Timmy. He had helped me a few times, so I felt we could coexist, but with him slightly further away. I thought that I could build a temporary wall and lure him outside because I didn't want to put him down. I already felt morally wrong to take his home, so I didn't want to add to it. But Timmy wasn't having it, forcing my hands to make a hard decision. Timmy must die. I felt horrible later that night, so I tried to drown out the noise in my head with some mead. It didn't work. The next following days, I worked on the hillside and made a path to access the village. The idea came about when Timmy damaged this rock, which I thought I could turn into a cool tunnel to access the village. So I dug out the stone carefully and made a clean tunnel through the other side. I worked on the entrance to make it more appealing by creating a ribcage open roof design using mostly 26-degree beams, and finished the back part with some 45-degree beams, and achieved this look for the tunnel entrance. I also recreated the design on the other side of the tunnel. I then started to terraform the land and made some areas lower than others, giving the village landscape a unique look compared to Georgetown and Dwarfhenge Village. I kept most of the big rocks to use in the future, and I found more silver in the process. Sweet. So it took me about 4 days to prepare the land to this point, and it wasn't done yet, but at least I had a clear idea as to where it was going. On day 28, I sailed to a nearby swamp I saw on top of the mountain to get some iron for the construction project, which was very important to execute the design I had in mind. So I visited Billy Joe and Billy J for that sweet iron scraps. Found 2 crypts not far from each other and spent 2 days gathering the iron scraps. It wasn't much, but was enough to get me going to build at least 2 structures. I eventually got back and waited for the iron to be smelted down into bars. Later in the night, I couldn't sleep because the excitement was bubbling me to start. So I made a nearby campfire and built the support system for the structure. I wanted to be merged with the landscape, so I positioned it close to the rock. On the morning of day 30, I kicked into full gear to work on what was going to be my home. My vision for the build was to have a stone roof that was supported by iron beams and make the base of the structure wider than the roof, giving the build depth. Then I could add custom columns that would make it appear to be holding the whole roof up. So I did what I had envisioned and it came out like this, which I loved, and it gave me new ideas for the next builds. I then added a few decorations to make it warm and welcoming. Finally, I could move out of this thing.
What is that?
Now that I had an official home in the mountain, I wanted to get this fancy bed. So I headed over to Georgetown to check on my birch tree farm to get some fine wood and regular wood for the next build. I grabbed some material at Dwarfen's storage house and headed back to the mountain and made the luxury Viking bed. On day 37, I wasn't happy with the layout of the village, so I changed it to this and got some new ideas in the process. On day 39, I built the structure support for two builds, the tall one to become a tower later on having a bridge connected to it, and the other one a blacksmith, both having a similar style to the home I just built. I decided to start with the blacksmith first because I had lots of unsmelted silver sitting around. I wanted some upgrades like a new butter knife and a new shield. So for the blacksmith, I wanted it to be compact and neat, so first I recreated the roof that was on my house but left it flat so I could add 4 killings on top. Once that was done, I then proceeded to work on the base of the structure. I enclosed a fire pit and added a ladder to access the killing above that I thought was a neat idea. I placed a chest within the floor to maximize storage space. I added the final touch by building a better looking entrance for the blacksmith, finally completing the build on day 46. On day 47, I started smelting the silver ores. While that was going on, I headed over to Dwarfhenge to carry over some stone, but I got a certainly raid. Meh, where's the challenge? It was pretty easy. At one point, I thought it must be the new Certling Core delivery service. Sloppy, but I still appreciated the cores. On day 48, I decorated the blacksmith a bit so I could start using it. I finally upgraded my shield and my butter knife. Later that day, I went out to mine some copper so I could build more sconces for lighting. On day 49, I was in need of a lot of wood in a shorter time period. The greater farm wasn't able to keep up with my demands, so I was back at Georgetown to do what I'm good at. Yes, give Mother Nature a nice clean shave. I got 3 carts full of wood. Knowing me, this won't be enough. On day 53, I was back to work, focused on the bridge this time. For the bridge, I envisioned it being supported by my custom columns. I wanted to use those columns to make an overhead arch for the bridge. Yes, I know it doesn't curve like an arch, but I'm sure you got the image I was portraying. I completed the bridge and this was the final look. I loved how it turned out and thought about using this again in my future 100 days. Next, I needed to figure out this spot. I first thought about a frozen garden, but then the idea for a portal hub came to my mind. So I created an octagonal layout for the structure. I placed wood iron poles for the columns to support the stone on top. I created a spider web pattern open roof design. I then added the details to the columns and the base of the structure. And so with a bit more detailing, I elevated the look to another level. The landscape needed more work, but for now, I fenced off the edges to give me ideas of what I may do with it in the future. Okay, it's time for the next structure. On day 65, I started to work on the tower that should be connected to the bridge. I worked on the roof first, recreating my house roof design on it. I was able to fill the middle with stone floor with the help of iron cages connected to iron beams. I then added a second row of stone at the middle of the structure and started to work on framing the windows for the top floor using core wood, regular wood, and iron cages. The base of the structure is pretty much the same as my house once all the details were added. I then started to build a spiral stairs using 1 meter floor and with the help of the core wood for support, and it came out like this. I then added some more details, completing the look. The bridge was finally connected to the top floor of the tower, and so far it looked good. Just needed a few more decorations. What was left is to figure what to do with this area and this spot.
which I thought maybe I could build something grand looking, maybe a mead hall or a tavern. So I let the idea simmer in my mind until I made the final decision. On day 71 to 72, I took a break from building because I felt a bit burnt out. So I headed back over to Dwarf Henge and did some reaping and planting. I colored the welcome text for the village with crayons. I wanted to do some more, so I headed over to Jerwood and did the same. The kid in me wanted to color the world. I later set up a cart to be loaded up with more resources from the Greater Farm while I was there. On day 73, because I was so absorbed into building, I forgot all about my wolves. So to make it up to them, I made a kennel for them to level up their living condition. Nothing fancy really. The next day I went out hunting for drakes and wolves. I was dominating the mountain. It started to feel like it was my domain. On day 75, I built a storage. I had it in mind when I dug this spot out when I was terraforming the land, so I worked on the front and added a few chests inside. Day 76, I went back to the swamp for iron in preparation for the next project. I made up my mind that the build was going to be a tavern. On day 77, I started working on the hill. I wanted to ensure that the build I had in mind could fit and merge with the tall rock at the back seamlessly. So I removed the other rock that was in the way and I tried to terraform the land to have a flat surface to work with. Some areas would not go any lower. Sadly, I can only dig 8 meters down from the original height of the land. I made a nice sloping path on the side of the hill to get to the tavern and then started to build the entrance for the tavern, which was 6 meters in width with columns on each side and a triangle shaped roof in the middle. Next, I started to work on the main body of the structure. I ensured that the layout lines up properly with the front of the entrance of the build and used iron poles so I could get a few more meters in height, giving it a grand feeling with the roof at an angle. I attached 2 more structures that added more roof height variation and expanded the front of the build, adding to the grandness of the structure. I worked on the windows for the top center body of the structure and the 2 side structures, giving them fancy window designs to complement the build. I switched my focus back to the entrance. I added an arch using the dragon adornment and added some more details that made the entrance pop. After all that, I sprinkled some decorations and some landscaping. Yes, that was it. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Boulder Tav. During the building process, I got raided twice. Wellington the Skeleton with his crew, the Brittle Boys, came marching in, and later on Winnie the Wolf came with his crew, the Howling Fleabags. Both crew got what they so rightly deserved. Now that the outside was completed, I needed to work on the interior, which took some mining overnight. My plan was originally to put the kitchen here, but it was too tiny. So I dug all the way through to see what other options I had. And then I saw another rock that looked perfect. So I terraformed a little spot of land nearby. I was thinking to use this spot as a eating area with a fire pit. I dug out the rock so I could figure out the layout of the kitchen. I had to be careful not to break the wrong parts of the rock. I tried staying in the middle as best as I could. Once all that was done, I decorated the interior. I added a few seating areas and worked on the tunnel to make it more pleasing to look at. I added larger tables around the fire pit to indicate this was the main eating area. I decorated the kitchen, made it simple, so I had somewhere to cook my food, and completed the build on day 91. So the only thing left for me to do was to figure out what to do with this spot. I dug out a tunnel at the back of the tower through the rock to access the hill. Later I headed over to Dwarf Henge to grab some more wood from the Greater Farm and some seeds like fir tree seeds and ancient seeds. With the power of the Plant Everything mod, I was able to plant ancient tree saplings using ancient seeds, which I thought would look cool in the village. So on day 92, I started planting shrubs and tree saplings around the village, and it made a whole difference. The village felt more alive. What would complete this is if there were people walking around. That would be cool. I completed it on day 96.
4 days was left and I kicked into full gear for the final spot. I prepared the land to have a flat surface to build a structure on and tried my best to make the hills around the spot to look natural and not player made. Next I proceeded to build an octagonal structure which is 4 meters for each side and 7 stone walls high. I built the front and the back roof overhang at an angle so it can cover the structure properly. I added some more details to the roof, then built the entrance for the structure. I then added details to the base and the windows to make it more appealing. I added the final touches and it was complete. It was day 102 and what a creative journey it was. Another village was added to my collection and another biome was conquered by my hammer. It was done, and so I set my eyes on the new journey ahead.